It's June 12, 1944, and Japanese Imperial forces are storming northeastern India. Despite a broken wrist and other serious wounds to his leg and hand, Rifleman Ganju Lama of the 7th Gurkha Rifles grips his PIAT anti-tank projectile launcher with determined resolve. Even among this legendary brigade of fearless fighters, the 19-year-old has carved out an indomitable reputation for himself for his uncanny ability to lay enemy armored units to waste. Now, the Japanese are rapidly advancing toward the strategic regional hub of Imphal. Should the city fall, it would provide them with a springboard to invade all of India, an unthinkable blow for the Allied position in Asia. The only thing standing in the way of the Japanese tanks are the Gurkhas, but now the enemy has them on the ropes. Fortunately, they have a secret weapon, Ganju Lama, and he won't let a few war wounds stop him. Amid the cacophony of gunfire, Ganju Lama navigates through the thick mud and smoke. His assistant is struck down, but there's no time to waste. He must go it alone, carefully edging closer to the enemy until he finds the perfect position. As the tanks loom large, he steadies his aim. All eyes are on him. Ganju Lama began life as Gyamtso Shangdurpa on July 22, 1924, in the small Himalayan village of Sangmo in northern Sikkim, today part of northeastern India. His Nepalese mother tragically passed away when he was just 4 years old, leaving the young Gyamtso to be raised by his strict father, a farmer who belonged to the Bhutia people. Gyamtso had a difficult childhood, working tirelessly on his father's farm. With no schools in the area, he never received a formal education. Yet, when his elder brother joined the Assam Rifles paramilitary force, it only took one look at his uniform for Gyamtso to know that he, too, wanted to leave behind sleepy village life and seek adventure as a soldier. One day in 1942, 17-year-old Gyamtso was playing cards with a friend when his father, prone to fits of anger, began beating him with a stick. It was the tipping point that pushed Gyamtso to leave home and head for the Army Recruitment Office, where he would join the 1st Battalion of the 7th Gurkha Rifles. Normally made up of soldiers from Nepal, the Gurkha regiments had been integral to the British Indian Army since the early 19th century, soon gaining legendary status as some of the Empire's fiercest fighters, renowned for their steadfast loyalty, extreme courage, and impressive combat skills. Their fearless reputation was perhaps best summed up by former Indian Army Chief of Staff Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw when he said, quote, "If a man says he's not afraid of dying, he's either lying or he is a Gurkha." As the escalation of World War II would require more and more soldiers, the Gurkha regiments decided to waive their Nepalese-only policy and allow recruits from neighboring regions of India, including Sikkim, allowing Gyamtso to join their prestigious ranks. However, the clerk at the recruitment office made a mistake when writing Gyamtso's name, inadvertently giving him the name under which he would become a legend, Ganju Lama. Upon joining the Gurkhas, Ganju, as he was now known, was sent to Palampur in Punjab province, where he would complete 6 months of rigorous basic training, followed by a further 3 months of specialized jungle warfare training in preparation for taking on the Imperial Japanese Army, who had swiftly advanced across Burma and who now had their sights set on India. After completing his training, Ganju Lama was appointed Batman to Major Roy Gribble, the commanding officer of the 1st Battalion's B Company, essentially working as the Major's personal servant. Gribble had specifically requested a tough soldier who could keep up with him on the march, and Ganju was considered the best man for the job. On his first day, he appeared in the Major's dugout at 4 a.m. with a mess tin of tea, yet instead of waking him with a polite "good morning" or "sir," he simply said "get up." Gribble was surprised, but far from taking offense, he found it funny and instantly took a shine to the young recruit. While fighting alongside Major Gribble, Ganju Lama would see his first combat action. B Company and another Gurkha company were sent to attack a ridge held by the Japanese for several months, despite numerous attempts to retake it. In the midst of the battle, the two men found themselves in a perilous situation, dug in on top of the Japanese position. Suddenly, a Japanese soldier appeared from behind and was rapidly bearing down on them. Fortunately, the young Gurkha showed lightning-quick reactions, instantly turning around and dispatching the enemy with his bayonet, the first appearance of the bravery and battlefield prowess that he would soon become famous for. In March 1944, the Japanese war machine marched over the Burmese border into the Indian state of Manipur, heading for the fortress towns of Imphal and Kohima. Determined to push back the invasion, a brigade made up of the 5th and 7th Gurkha Rifles set out on a lengthy march behind enemy lines. On May 17th, Ganju Lama and his fellow Gurkhas arrived 33 miles south of Imphal and began securing the area, in order to set up a roadblock on the Imphal-Tidim road. B Company was assigned the east side of the main thoroughfare, and they began carefully checking the zone for any sign of the enemy. As night fell, they suddenly discovered a well-fortified enemy stronghold bristling with bunkers. Without a moment to waste, a fierce attack was launched by B Company's leading platoon, which included Ganju Lama. They swiftly eliminated the outer defenses, but upon reaching a ravine, their momentum was abruptly halted as the thunderous roar of machine gun fire greeted them. Lurking in the darkness were 3 enemy tanks, their 37mm guns spewing high explosive rounds that kept the platoon pinned down. Fortunately, the Gurkhas had a PIAT anti-tank projectile launcher with them. Its designated gunner was Ganju Lama. Now was his moment to prove what he was made of. In the thick of the chaos, he courageously crept forward, maneuvering into an optimal position to deploy his weapon, his focus unshaken despite the hail of enemy fire. At a mere 60 yards from the menacing steel beasts, Ganju took aim and fired. His first bomb missed its mark, but undeterred, he loaded a second. This time his aim was true. The bomb soared through the air and struck one of the tanks, which erupted into flames, prompting a chorus of cheers from his comrades. As the time came to withdraw, Ganju provided covering fire, standing his ground so the rest of the company could retreat to safety. For his impressive performance that night, Ganju Lama was awarded the military medal. However, despite Ganju and the Gurkhas' best efforts, their position soon proved untenable, as the Japanese stepped up their response by attacking with greater force. The 5th and 7th Gurkhas were forced to head toward the town of Ningtokong, a few miles southwest of Imphal, while the Japanese continued their advance, planning to surround and eliminate them before taking Imphal, and undoubtedly marching onwards through India. On June 12th, the two sides found themselves facing one another on opposite sides of a stream just outside Ningtokong. The Japanese quickly showed that they meant business, subjecting the 5th Gurkha Rifles, who were closest to the stream, to a brutal onslaught with their combination of infantry and armored units. The situation quickly turned dire for the 5th Gurkhas as they found themselves overwhelmed by the Japanese military might. Tank after tank came rolling over the stream. Some got bogged down in the mud, but continued pounding the beleaguered 5th Regiment with a relentless barrage. Luckily, B Company of the 7th Gurkha Rifles was not far behind, and among their ranks was a man who had already proved he wasn't afraid to take on a tank or two, Ganju Lama. As B Company surged forward to save their comrades, the Japanese attack refused to let up. Casualties were many, the Gurkha lines thinning as they desperately attempted to hold off the enemy's advance. Not even Ganju Lama went unscathed, the fierce fighting leaving him with a broken wrist and serious wounds to his right leg and left hand. Nonetheless, he was a Gurkha, and he was prepared to fight until the bitter end. He would later say, quote, "We were soldiers. All we knew was to chase the enemy, march ahead, never retreat. That's all we knew." As the Japanese tanks advanced on B Company's position, the 19-year-old rifleman knew what he had to do. With his trusty PIAT in hand, he grabbed another soldier to assist him, and the two men began their perilous journey across the battlefield to take on the enemy machinery. Pushing forward through black clouds of smoke, Ganju Lama's assistant was hit. Though badly wounded himself, Ganju would have to face the tanks alone. He could hear the tanks thundering around him, but he couldn't yet see them, so he crawled forward over the battle-torn terrain through thick mud until he finally got one in his sights, just 30 yards away. The rest of the Gurkhas looked on, knowing the outcome of the battle could depend on what happened in the next few moments. With a deep breath, Ganju Lama took aim and unleashed the PIAT's 3-pound grenade. It was a direct hit, crashing through the Japanese tank's armor and sending it up in flames. Moments later, a second tank emerged through the smoke of the first, hell-bent on avenging its fallen predecessor. Once again, the plucky Gurkha calmly lined up his victim and pulled the PIAT's trigger. A loud explosion let him know he had hit his target. A third tank was destroyed by supporting fire, and surviving crew members from all 3 tanks were attempting to escape. Despite his wounds, Ganju Lama was determined to do all he could to stop them. Rushing forward, he launched a frenzied grenade attack on the enemy soldiers, pulling out the pins with his teeth before throwing them with his remaining good hand. It wasn't until he had taken out every last one of the Japanese tank crew members that he finally allowed himself to be evacuated to receive treatment for his wounds. With the 3 tanks successfully neutralized, the Gurkhas were back on top, successfully beating back the Japanese advance. The tide of the battle had turned, in no small part thanks to Ganju Lama's incredible efforts, a fact which did not go unnoticed by his superiors. It was initially suggested that he should be given a bar to add to his military medal, but upon further consideration of the magnitude of his contribution, it was decided that he should instead receive the Victoria Cross, the highest and most prestigious medal in the British honor system for gallantry in the face of the enemy, which is only given in situations where the likelihood of fatality is considered to be from 90 to 100%. On October 24, 1944, at Red Fort in New Delhi, Ganju Lama received his Victoria Cross in a wheelchair before returning to the hospital, where he would complete a total of 22 months of recuperation. Following India's independence in 1947, Ganju Lama transitioned to the 11th Gurkha Rifles, a unit formed by members of the 7th and 10th Gurkha Rifles who chose to serve the newly sovereign nation under the Indian flag. His distinguished military career saw him rise to the senior rank of Subedar Major. In a notable honor, he was appointed as the aide-de-camp to the President of India in 1965, a position which was made lifelong upon his retirement from the army as an honorary captain in 1972. In the years that followed, Ganju Lama returned to his life as a farmer in Sikkim, as well as doing charitable education work for children in his village.